welcome to Involvement versus Engagement. My name is Amanda, and I am the coordinator for student organizations. Let's go ahead and jump on in. I know you already did your check-in, but essentially this presentation is about making the most of campus opportunities. And so before I jump in, welcome to our presentation and welcome to UNT Student Activities. This presentation and other workshops like it are sponsored from our office throughout the semester. And essentially, in like three little nutshells, what Student Activities does is student organizations, campus-wide events and spirit and traditions, and then off-campus student services. We have over 450 student organizations, which includes organizations that are performing arts-based, sports-based, fraternity, sorority life. We do officer support, sold workshops like this one, CEO prep, New Org boot camp, involvement advising, Eagle Awards, and National Hazing Prevention Week. That's one of our new things that we're starting up this semester, so stay tuned for the end of September. Under campus-wide events and spirit and traditions, we have a variety of big events that we host throughout the year. Founders Day, Homecoming, University Day, Earth Fest, Mean Green Fling, and then we also sponsor the North Texas Dancers and Cheer teams, as well as Scrappy and Talons out of our office, and so everything is just kind of thrown together there. So anything that's like rah rah go Mean Green falls into here a little bit. And lastly, we do off-campus student services, where we collaborate with off-campus housing partners, different campus partners, to make sure that off-campus students or non-traditional students have access to resources. And that includes hosting our campus and community fair, coffee and convos, where we promote connecting with your professors or other faculty partners. We do commuter and non-traditional weeks. We offer complete care, which is partnerships with different online care resources, whether it's childcare, senior care, pet sitting care. We offer family fun and family movie nights, grab and goes, which we just had one this morning, where we had breakfast available in a commuter lot. And lastly, we do professional picture day. And so to kind of break down what campus opportunities means, campus opportunities can literally apply to anything on campus. They can be spontaneous, it can be something that's planned out in advance, and it includes student organizations, campus events, on-campus jobs, leadership positions, intramurals, orientation, literally anything that you can think of where you're on campus or even online talking about campus counts as an opportunity to connect with others. And everyone's college journey is going to be different, and that's okay. You don't have to make the same connections at orientation as other people do. You don't have to make the same connections in like a residence hall or student organization, because everyone's journey is going to be their own. Okay, so getting connected on campus means a variety of things. You can do interpersonal connections, so just like one-on-one conversation style. You can virtually connect, whether that means actually like connecting with an individual or connecting with a resource. And the importance of connection is really that point A. Once you get connected with a resource, you're able to then utilize it to the best of your abilities. Once you get connected to your professor, it's less intimidating to say like, hey, can you go back a slide? Like, I didn't really get that, and I need a little bit more help understanding this. And so getting connected and creating that like foundation for a further relationship or a further interaction is super important. And it also just opens up the door to potentially finding lasting relationships beyond that one point in class period or anything like that. And so different ways to like initially get connected as a student is talk to organizations and departments when they table. Of course, that doesn't mean that you have to like stop at every single table like in the library mall, because like it's hot and there's too many of them out at some points in time. But talking to a couple of them, if you see something that interests you, don't just be like, oh, like I'll look them up later. Like if you have the time, feel free to stop by, introduce yourself, get to know what they're doing and like what they're out there promoting, because they could be fundraising, they could be out recruiting membership, they could be promoting an event that they have going on. Next, you can join an online community or a different like UNT group sort of thing. I remember back when I was a first year student, I joined the Bruce Hall Group Me before. Hey, welcome and go ahead and take a seat. I joined the Bruce Hall Group Me, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Like everybody's starting to talk. They're like talking about their favorite restaurants, or like talking about where to go get their hair cut. And then on my first night when I moved in, I put a chat in the message, and I was like, hey, or a message in the chat. And I was like, hey, does anybody want to come and like play, like I had Cards Against Humanity in my room. And 10 people came over, and me and my roommate were like the hosts, and we were like passing out our snacks. And some of those people that I met that first night, I continue to talk with the rest of the year and even like into my for the years past freshman year, and it was just super cool to like start that opportunity and like take it a step further and really utilize. And so it's taking the little opportunities and just like putting yourself out there, because I'm not a super social person. Like, I can be a little bit social sometimes, but I'm not the type of person to like walk up to anybody in a room and be like, hey, you want to be friends? Like, that's a bit too far for me, but finding the spaces to take like a little step here, a little step there is really helpful. Next, follow people on social media. This can be departments, it can be people you meet at orientation, it can be the campus in general. Like, UNT will post when different things are happening. Our office posts events that are happening, and it's just a great way to kind of get in the know and get connected to the different areas of campus. Next, start a conversation with the person next to you in class. It could be as simple as at the end of the class asking if they already have the textbook, and like that's your way in to start talking about the class, or finding any little thing. It could even be the shirt that they're wearing. You see a shirt and it's like an artist that you really like, and you're like, oh my god, that's so cool. Do you listen to fill in the blank? And boom, you start a conversation. Next, you can take a group exercise class at the rec and talk to somebody after the class. They offer dance, fitness, Zumba, cycling classes, anything that you can think of. They have that provided. And you can just find somebody there and meet with them after class, see if they want to walk downstairs to the Smoothie King, or go to a residence hall, dining hall. Next, introduce yourself to somebody at the dining hall. This one, it might be a little bit out of the comfort zone for some people, because like, you don't want to be the crazy person that's just like going and sitting next to people and being like, hey, because then they're like, who is this girl? But if you, once in a while, if you see somebody that you recognize from class and saying like, hey, you're in like fill in the blank class on like Mondays, Wednesdays, right? Yeah, and then you can sit and start a connection there. And lastly, utilize an online resource from a department. This is just plugging into some of those resources that exist. This could be using the big interview from the Career Center, or filling out a form online that helps connect you with something else. And these are all just like super relatively easy ways to get connected. And now this is kind of what you talked about at the beginning. What are the different ways that you can get involved? I consider getting connected like the first step on the staircase, and then the next step up is getting involved. And so when you're taking those connections to the next level and you're putting in that level of commitment, saying like, hey, I met you when you were tabling and you invited me to your organization. I think this sounds really cool and I want to be part of this. And college isn't just about going to classes all the time. It can't be. Professors don't come after me. I feel weird saying that in an academic building because somebody's going to come in and be like, what did you just say? But college isn't just about going to class. It's not just about doing your homework. College is a place where you're really growing and you're learning who you are. You're learning how you work with other people. And taking that chance to get involved on campus has quite a few different outcomes, if you will, that last longer than college. Some of them are just at college, like improved academic performance and like building that connection on campus. But generally getting involved leads to cognitive development, personal well-being, and increased leadership ability, as well as cultural awareness and the ability to communicate with people who might not come from the same background as you, but also people who just communicate in a different way. They might be from a different generation, or they just have a different mindset. And kind of to shift gears into like what the options are for getting involved on campus, the list that is on here is really just like a small handful. There are so many, and if you're wanting to get involved on campus, you're looking for student organizations or campus departments to really plug into, you're able to get involvement advised through our office. Involvement advising is a one-on-one appointment where you meet with one of our student assistants or with one of our professional staff members, and you get a personalized involvement plan based on your academic and career interests, your personal interests, whether it's a hobby or just something that you've been doing for a while, like a sport, and then as well as connecting you with campus departments based on the information that you provide us. If you're interested, I can show you how to find it after the presentation, because I'll even pull it up for you. But to start off with, student organizations, we have a plethora of student organizations. I mentioned earlier that there are over 450. The website might look a little different right now because they're still in the process of getting registered, but they exist, I promise. But we have organizations that appeal to a wide variety, and you're able to search through them by category. So we have religious and spiritual orgs, political and social awareness orgs, academic and professional, cultural, performing arts, and that doesn't even include some of our other partner organizations like sports clubs, fraternities and sororities. But all of those are run through our office, and those are a great way to like get involved and like start building your community on campus. Next, we have community service. We are really big supporters and really big fans of the Center for Leadership and Service on campus. They offer service opportunities, whether here at UNT or around in the Denton community or even just nearby. They also offer campus-wide service projects occasionally where you're able to come together and work towards a certain goal as a campus. Sometimes that'll happen during homecoming week or anything other, like any other big events like that. And we also have some service-based orgs that partner with our Center for Leadership and Service, where you're able to meet with other people and get connected with people who value community service and serving those around them. Next, we have on-campus jobs and internships, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be something related to your field, but if you can be a lab technician, you can work in like one of the performing arts centers on campus or anything like that if it's related, but you can also just do it to make money, obviously, but create those connections and like build that community a little bit more. And it also helps you be more aware of the resources that are happening on campus. Once I started working as a student for UNT, I learned about so many more different opportunities, and part of it was that I was presenting at orientation and learning a little bit more. But overall, it was just a great way to experience new ways of working because I had never worked in a similar office before. Next, we have the Pole Rec Center. They offer group exercise classes, outdoor pursuits, and general use, and all of those ways are really great to meet people and just start like having a consistent routine if that's something that works for you, or finding the different ways to relieve stress, practice personal wellness on campus. Next, we have fraternities and sororities. There are 4 councils here at UNT. We have the Collegiate Panhellenic Council, the Interfraternity Council, Multicultural Greek Council, and National Panhellenic Council. And together, under like the umbrella of fraternities and sororities on campus, they all value brotherhood and sisterhood, service, leadership, and scholarship. And so they all do service projects throughout the semester. They promote academic improvement, etc. Next, leadership roles. There are some leadership development classes or workshops through the Center for Leadership and Service. You can also be someone like a resident assistant or peer mentor or other like leadership type role on campus. Or you can participate in like a planning committee. One of the things that pops into my mind is Homecoming Crew. It's a group of students who come together to plan the homecoming week events over the course of a full year. And so they're working together, they're learning how to plan events, they're learning how to problem solve and do all of the different things that make them better leaders on campus. Next, you can get involved with student governance. SGA on campus, the Student Government Association, has plenty of opportunities to get involved in. And then lastly, programs and resources. Simply just attending an event on campus is a super great way to get connected and get involved on campus. Showing up to, like, there's a flower pressing workshop tomorrow from the University Programming Council. So just showing up to that and like participating in the art project, or going to any events that are hosted by like the First Generation Center, the Pride Alliance, the Multicultural Center, Survivor Advocate, etc. Just to kind of get involved with what their offices do and meet new people. And so the next step, step 3, if you will, is engagement. Engagement is purposefully investing time and energy into those existing connections and involvements. It's really taking that next step and saying, hey, I'm not just going to be a name on the list of people that are in this organization, or I'm not just going to be a student in this class. I'm going to take it a step forward and like connect it to my future goals. I'm going to connect it to the reason that I'm here. Find some way to connect it to the things that you're passionate about, and really invest that time and energy to make an intentional engagement opportunity for yourself. And engagement also doesn't look the same for everyone. Some people are like, oh, if I'm president of this organization, I've made it, like I'm engaged. Just because you have the title doesn't mean that you're actually fully engaged. But also, you don't have to have the title to be fully engaged. You don't have to be president. You don't have to be vice president. You can be a really engaged general member. And it just means that you're taking those extra steps. You're not doing the bare minimum. And you're really making that solid commitment to give back to a community or give back to a group. Engagement can lead to a sense of mattering and belonging, help you make a more defined purpose or connect more to that purpose. It also increases your ability to critically think, problem solve, and work with others. And it also helps you develop that stronger community. I know first year students, especially, like sometimes when you're in a new place, you're away from home, you're away from your family and your friends for the first time. getting involved in those engagement opportunities on campus and like finding that community is super important, especially if you're a student who doesn't live in just the Denton area and doesn't like live 10 minutes away from campus. And so getting engaged is really like the next step to make those connections and that involvement commitment last longer than just undergrad. So what can engagement look like? I mentioned earlier, it doesn't look the same for everyone. And it also doesn't look the same in every opportunity that you have. Engagement is going to look different in the classroom than it does at work. It's going to look different in a student organization versus just in your community. It can even look different in like a family type setting. And so there's a variety of ways that like your engagement can pop up. And in my head, as I was making the presentation, every time I wrote engagement, or like, what does engagement look like? I was just like, ring. But like the kind of like the symbolism of like, it's a commitment. It's like the commitment to the future, a commitment to somebody else. And like you're striving to better yourselves, you're striving to better the community and make that lasting impact. And so some of the different ways that you can commit to engagement or make the next step towards that engagement are some of the little things that are on here. It can just be sitting next to someone new or sitting next to somebody you haven't talked to in a while. And really making that connection a little bit more intentional, taking it to the next step. Not me forget, like if I see you in the hallway tomorrow, not being like, oh, I don't know him. You're like, hey, Sean, how are you? Taking it that next step and making sure that somebody feels recognized and seen. But also even just talking to somebody that you haven't talked to in a while can remind them that you are there for a reason and like maybe connect further and create a more lasting relationship. Next, invite people to something outside of Blink. Inviting somebody that you're sitting next to in class to the SI session that's happening after later that afternoon, or inviting somebody from your student org to go grab dinner with you. And it doesn't even have to be fancy. Like y'all can just go to like Eagle Landing or something like that. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can be a group exercise class. It can just be like to go utilize the meditation space in the union or anything like that. Next, create or update something. This is one of the ways that it's a little bit more active. It's a little bit more than that involvement stage. You're not just doing what the person before you did in that position, or you're not just doing what your professor has said on the project. Like if you're writing a paper, you can simply write like, I went to UNT for my undergrad, like, and that sort of thing, and just like list it out. Or you can talk about, I went to UNT for undergrad and had really transformational experiences. Here's what those transformational experiences were, and here's how they impacted me when I graduated, and here's how they helped me get a job, whatever that might look like. And then having that creation or that like investment of updating something kind of leaves your legacy a little bit. It puts a little lastingness of you, because you're maybe not going to be in that position for the rest of your life. You might not be that president for the rest of your life, but you creating something and like making something that can impact others is something that'll last. Next, going beyond the minimum expectations. And also making time for planning and reflection. This is something that I always struggled with because I'm a big procrastinator. I love to procrastinate. I have a paper due, I'm writing it that night. Like, I don't know what I can't get out of it. Like, it's just been an issue since middle school. Maybe before in elementary school. It was just a little bit harder to procrastinate then because it was like cutting shapes out. But still, if I can procrastinate, I try to find a way to do it now. But I try to sometimes tell myself and make that intentional note to myself, like, hey, Amanda, this is coming up. Here's some time to plan for it. Here's your actual time to do it. And make sure that I leave space at the end to reflect and say, okay, what went well during this event, or what went well during this presentation? What didn't go so well? What could I have prevented or prepared for a little bit better? And how can I make those changes next time, so that I'm continuously improving myself and continuously working on making these experiences better, making if I write a paper, making sure that that's better, and finding those little ways to go beyond the bare minimum, and really dive deep into a project. Like recently I did a research paper, and we had to reference, I think it was like 5 to 10 resources. And I was like, you know what? I can do that. But I'm also really interested in this topic, and I really want to see like what more I can grasp from this, and like how I can dive deeper into the research that already exists to like better write my paper. And so I went through, and I think I ended up at the end of my paper having like 20 or something like sources at the end. And my professor was like, you could have just done the 10, right? And I was like, yeah, I know, but I was really interested, and like kind of just got into this groove. and ended up learning a lot about myself, learning a lot about the topic, and feeling really good about it at the end. Like, that paper is still something that I will pull up. Like, if somebody asks me, what did you do in grad school? This paper is one of the things I'm like, I wrote this like 20-something page article. And it's one of those things where now, because I invested a little bit more and made an intentional effort to really dive into that paper, I feel more connected to that class. I feel more connected to that professor and that topic. Next, engage with presenters, professors, etc. In other words, network a little bit. This doesn't have to be in like a conference or a class setting. I didn't know what else to put because I was trying to go with the PP, and so I was like, people, I don't know, but engage with the people around you. If you're in class, engage with the people next to you. If you're at like a workout class, talking to the person that's leading the workout class. If you do go to a conference, talking to the person who is presenting and asking a follow-up question, or at least just saying, hey, I really appreciated your conversation on this topic. These are the highlights and what I really enjoyed from this presentation. Next, attend a conference or other learning opportunity. Taking that extra step and saying like, hey, I'm not just going to go to class, I'm going to like try to go to this workshop that's happening on campus where like the chemistry department is bringing in a speaker, and I'm going to go watch them give their lecture, or it could be one of the distinguished lectures that come through for the distinguished lecture series, and making that extra effort to seek out a little bit more. And it doesn't even have to be something that's related to your major. Like if the physics department is bringing in somebody and you're like, that person sounds really cool, why not go in and engage with them and at least have that moment of like intellectual or even just, entertainment value from that. Next, follow up. If you meet with somebody, even if it's like somebody, you're at work and you meet with somebody from a different part of the office, follow up with them saying, hey, thank you so much for coming out today. I really appreciated getting to know you more and appreciated like your feedback on this project that I've been working on. This can also look like if you say that you're going to do something for somebody in class and you're like, oh yeah, like I'll send you my notes since you're going to be out for like a wedding that you're going to, making sure that you actually follow up and follow through on those commitments and make good on them to make yourself a more reliable source, but also to make that relationship built on trust and like built on a foundation where that person knows that if they need something, they can go to you. And this also applies if you happen to like work on a project with somebody together and it's the end of the semester and now you're like, oh yeah, I remember doing this project, but we're like referencing something from it for the final and I can't remember where they found it. Feel free to like always reach back out and just like, hey, me again, do you have XYZ resource, whatever it may be. Next, ask better questions and listen to listen. I think a lot of the times we get into the kind of habit of just asking a question and not really waiting for like, I'm not going to actually listen to your response. I'm going to start thinking about what I want to say. That can even happen with icebreakers where it's like, what is the craziest trip you've ever been on in your life or something like that? And then you ask that question and then you're just sitting there and you're thinking about it so much that you're not even listening to what everybody else has to say. And when you're not listening to what other people are saying, just to listen, and you're listening to react or listening to say whatever you're going to say next, it makes for a less intentional connection and a less rewarding interaction because you're going to forget what they just said 5 minutes later because you weren't actually really listening to it in the first place. And this is also one of those ways where you can really get to know a person. Like if somebody is saying, if you ask like, oh, how are you doing? And somebody's like, oh, I'm fine. But they don't sound fine. Or like you can tell that something else is up or they haven't been around for a while and you haven't seen them for weeks and now they're just like, oh yeah, like I'm fine. There's always like the opportunity instead of just being like, oh good, I'm good too. And like moving on. That's an opportunity to go in and like further that relationship and say like, hey, I realize that you haven't been here for a while. What's been going on? And asking better questions also is one of those things where instead of just being like, instead of the general, how are you today or something like that, you can ask a little bit more of an intentional question, or instead of just being like, I'm having a conversation with you, what's your favorite color? If I see that you're like wearing the shirt of a band, to be like, oh my gosh, how long have you been a fan of fill in the blank or something like that, and taking it beyond just like the yes or no questions or like the one word answer questions. And then lastly, intentionally schedule time for reconnection. This can look like intentionally scheduling time to reconnect with yourself. It can be like practicing self-care. It could be practicing reflection. It can be making the time to follow up with somebody. And I'm the type of person, like if something isn't on my calendar, I might forget about it. And so for me, this could even look like putting something on my calendar, being like, text fill in the blank and like put in somebody to send a message to, or like give a call. Otherwise, I just get too busy and I forget about it until it's midnight, and I'm like, well, I can't call them now because it's just too late. And so this also works for intentionally like scheduling the time for reconnection. You graduate from UNT or coming back from homecoming, intentionally reaching out to your friends and saying, hey, is anybody coming back for homecoming? Or even if you're going back to like your old high school or something like that, intentionally reaching out to some people and saying, hey, I'm going to be in town. Are you interested in grabbing dinner? Or do you want to go grab coffee or something before going to whatever the event may be? And so these are just kind of some things to like start your brain thinking on different ways to like further your engagement, and really lean into the connections that you're making and lean into the involvement opportunities